And welcome to another episode of Over Underrated. It is your co-host Fran giving you the introduction today, and we have an exciting episode. We are back into the late 90s, discussing Ash and the Stereophonics with our special guest, the musician, comedian and podcaster Robin Allender, who chose Ash as his underrated choice and then paired them up with the Stereophonics. If you're a podcast fan, you may know Robin from my own personal Beatles, the Clientele podcast, and he's also the previous co-host of The Moon Underwater. We chat over 2 playlists and then we decide if either band is overrated or underrated, whilst also discussing a myriad of other musical topics. So I hope you enjoy the podcast.
Welcome to the Over Underrated podcast with Fran and Babs. Is it over or underrated?
And welcome back to another episode of Over Underrated with Fran and Babs. How are you doing today, Babs?
I am very well, Fran. How are you doing back from your holidays?
I am on 4 hours sleep and very into podcast. I've had a week in Crete to sit back and listen to endless podcasts and lots of music from the 1990s because Bab mentioned a task and I jumped on top of that task and I'm listening to every album I can think of from the whole decade of the 1990s. If you are watching our social media, you may have come across our noughties takes from previous guests mentioning their top 5 albums. So we may be doing a 90s one in the future.
We may.
What have you been listening to this week?
Well, yeah, so I also started doing the 90s completion task, and it's very difficult because in 1990, I was 3 years old. And for 1990 and 1991, I'm really struggling, as I was saying to Fran before the recording, but it's kind of, I'm not minding it because it's making me listen to whole albums of bands that I like, but I've never maybe taken the chance to before. But I have also been listening, Fran, to Sugar Babes because I saw them, the original trio, last week in
Beautiful.
good old Brussels, MKS, and they were really, really good. You know, I thought, they have good songs. Surely they will have good voices, but I was really amazed at how good their voices were. They had some excellent musicians with them as well. I think one of them was from Brussels, so they kind of were introducing him being like, here's Francois, he's in his hometown, and he did some guitar solos, not what I expect, several guitar solos at a Sugar Babes gig. Never would have thought. Yeah, that was maybe my surprise gig of the year so far, but you've seen them before and they were good, right?
I have seen 3 different versions of the Sugar Babes.
Oh my gosh. Wow. But have you seen the original? Have you?
Well,
you
last year,
the set? Oh, okay,
last year at Victoria's Festival, I saw the original 3 and it was a beautiful occasion and I was dancing to Ugly and Round, surrounded by ladies and I was the only man there, but that's fine.
Really?
It's perfectly fine to love the Sugar Babes and be in your 40s.
Oh, I think, I'm 36. I was not the youngest or oldest person there. I was very much in the middle. Fran, we are not here by ourselves. We are joined by a guest. We're joined by musician, comedian, and podcaster Robin Allender. Hi, Robin.
Hello. It's nice to be here.
Thank you for coming. What music have you been listening to? Any Sugar Babes?
No, but I do love the Sugar Babes.
Excellent.
They've got the best Wikipedia page in terms of the members because it's got beautiful symmetry to it. Because it ends up being the same members again.
Isn't there like an effect or something, or there's a certain name for because the Sugar Babes at one point there was none of the original 3,
Yeah.
so could it really be called the Sugar Babes? It got quite existential from what I remember.
Yeah, like Trigger's Broom kind of vibe, isn't it? Yeah. What have I been listening to? I love the new Mitski album. I've been listening to that a lot. I've been listening to it a lot, but there's one song on it in particular called Heaven, which I think is just absolutely beautiful. So I sort of have just been listening to that song on repeat, really. I don't know. I was sort of feeling a bit emotional maybe when I first heard it. It was like, I don't know, really, really affected me. Just, walking along Walworth Road, a man in his 40s just crying to Mitski like a character in like a Zach Braff film or something like that. But it's really, really good, that song.
That's
I think
good.
she's amazing songwriter.
I don't know that many of her songs, but is it kind of a sound evolution, the new album, or more of the same and that's all good?
It's less maybe angular. It's more. It's got more of an Americana kind of vibe, and there's a bit of almost to that song. There's almost a bit of a, I don't know, to me anyway, Twin Peaksy kind of thing going on. You know, that kind of very 50s kind of thing.
No, what you made me think of, do you follow the Indie Sleaze Instagram account, Robin?
I don't think I do, actually, no.
I feel like, Fran, I might have mentioned it to you before as well. It's just literally at Indie Sleaze, and they're the way they curate it is kind of, posting images from that time. And I think the one they posted possibly today was Sky Ferreira standing in front of a cafe called Twin Peaks Cherry Pie. And I was just thinking when you were saying that about how Twin Peaks has just never really gone out of fashion. Like whether it's the TV show, the atmosphere, the music. I still haven't watched Fire Walk With Me or the new one. I don't know if it's worth it.
I don't think I finished the new one, but there is a really amazing episode of it, which is you'll know the one when it comes along because it's quite extraordinary.
I think I destroyed Twin Peaks because I first watched it when I was like 11 years old.
Oh, too young.
And
too young.
It was like, what the fuck is happening? And I think that like I haven't gone back after seeing Bob. Is it Bob?
Yeah.
Bob.
Yeah, and having nightmares from Bob. So I should watch it as a grown up because I believe it's supposed to be fantastic. I have seen Fire Walk. Is it Walk With Me?
Yeah.
Fire Walk With Me.
Yeah. Loved the music. Did not get the film, but hey, I was like 11 years old, so
yeah. You're not meant to get it, really. I don't know.
So the theme for today, it is Britpop Part 3. And discussing whether they're overrated, we're discussing Stereophonics. And Robin has picked Ash as underrated today. So Robin, shall we start with Stereophonics and hear from you on how you feel about them, which from corresponding with you beforehand, a bit conflicted perhaps about saying the Stereophonics are overrated.
Well, yeah, I mean, first off, I feel a bit uncomfortable being overly critical of any artist, you know, on a podcast or in public kind of thing. Yeah. And also, Stereophonics, are they overrated? They're not very critically rated. They don't often get very good reviews, but they are incredibly popular. So in that sense, they are overrated. I mean, I really, when you asked me to do this, I'd been listening to a lot of Ash, so I thought I really want to talk about Ash because I think they are genuinely underrated. And then I was just basically trying to think of a band who I could compare them with. But I think there are some interesting comparisons, actually. I think there was an awful lot of promise with the first album of Stereophonics. I remember reading an interview, this was like in NME, maybe when the first album came out, and I think there was a thing where they were going to call it The Town Was Mad, which was the working title of Under Milkwood by Dylan Thomas. Because all the songs on the first album are about different characters and events in the town where they grew up. I thought that was really, really interesting. But then when I heard the album, I found it musically like maybe not that inspiring. And I think as they progressed, you know, I really, as I say again, I don't want to be too critical, but I find them fairly pedestrian sometimes.
Don't worry, we'll do the slugging off for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think we've had any hate mail, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, I think the only time people got het up was when we discussed whether Prince was overrated, and people were like, "How fucking dare you?" Without even listening to the episode, it's like, hang on.
So, you know, it's all fairly couched, but, you know, it's just not for me, basically. But, you know, they're incredibly popular and some people love them. You know, it's just not for me.
Bran, they your kind of thing or not really?
Stereophonics. So, yeah, I guess like Ash, they were the tail end of a Britpop without actually really being Britpop. I think basically if you were from Britain and you had a guitar in 1997, you were there for Britpop, even though, you know, none of their idols were at all like the same as like, you know, Blur or Oasis, really. So the first album completely, I didn't notice it at all. I think I first heard them when I think either Bartender and a Thief came out or Just Looking around 1999. I think it's the Performance and Cocktails album, and I didn't mind it. My first ever festival was V99, and Stereophonic was second on the list. I spent the whole day just dancing around to Supergrass and Soul Wax and Shed 7, having lots of space. And then suddenly the Stereophonics must have been at the height, and their first song was Bartender and a Thief, and I saw a girl scream for her life as she got carried away in the mosh pit, and I had to grab hold of my friend who's 6'4" and hold on for their life. And I don't think I've had a scarier moment in history. And I've seen Nine Inch Nails and like proper like heavy metal bands, but the Stereophonics in 1999 was the scariest gig of my entire life.
Wow!
Because obviously at the peak, you know, any band who are like that popular, people go crazy for, even if they're not playing like a heavy metal track.
That is amazing when you go back to when you watch like all those Britpop videos on YouTube or something. It's like Sleeper playing at the Astoria or something. There's like massive mosh pit.
Yeah.
It's so funny when you think about it. But yeah, I know.
Apart from the first song, I can't remember any about that gig. I've seen them headline 2 more festivals because, unlike Ash, they are still headlining festivals 20 odd years later. And I don't think they've improved. I think that maybe Kelly Jones is drinking from the same fountain of youth as Paul Rudd. Because I don't believe he's aged in 25 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I probably own Performance Cocktails. I didn't mind it when they came back with Dakota for a little bit, but yeah, they kind of became like Rod Stewart MOR after the second album, and I've not really recovered. But Babs, were you a hardcore Stereophonics fan? I almost did a Welsh accent, and I chickened out.
So I can say 0 traumatic experiences involving the Stereophonics. I'm happy to report. So I felt fairly neutral about them coming into this. If someone asked me, do you think they're overrated? I'd be like, well, probably yes, because they're quite popular and some of their songs are good, but I don't really get the hype so much. I will say that when you said a girl was screaming, I mean, we've got to say Kelly Jones is extremely fit, and that is definitely one of the appeals for me, a heterosexual woman. One of the videos that I watched from Robin's Picks, I was just looking at his eyelashes for a long time and I was like, God, yeah, he really is quite cool. And he's not really my type, but there we go. I think he has an amazing voice. I know that it's not everyone's cup of tea, and sometimes they get kind of slagged off for that as well. And I dipped a little bit into kind of interviews, and I found it quite funny that he was like slagging off Tom York, and then there was a bit of a backlash against that because he was saying that Tom York looked really sullen in Meeting People Is Easy, and he was slagging off Hearsay and Manufactured Pop, and I thought, really? Like from a band that got so big, that surprises me. But I will say, I also read an article. He has a trans son, and he's really proud of him and talking about it very openly, which is really sweet. And I think he thought he had a daughter who was coming out, and so he wrote a song about that, but then it turns out he had a trans son, and he's been really fantastic about that. So kudos to that. But yeah, going back to the music, it blows my mind that they supported the Rolling Stones. It blows my mind even more that David Bowie asked for them to support him, and the fact that they've had 5 consecutive UK #1 albums, the last one being Pull the Pin. So yeah, I think because I left the UK in 2001, Dakota, for example, that came out after I left, so I think that's, for example, one of those songs that when you hear podcasts on Radio X, it seems like that's always a song that and that was Dakota by Stereophonics. That's that, and like something by Red Hot Chili Peppers is always the stereotype, and I'm thinking like, oh yeah, I guess if that's on the radio a lot, you might feel that they're a bit overplayed, but for me, like before going into the playlist, I'm coming into this fairly neutrally.
But he's obviously a really, really nice guy, as you're saying, Babs, and it's quite amazing to have that reinvention in the noughties, when a lot of the bands from the 90s didn't actually manage to have that longevity.
But I'm always interested how they were a band who loved like AC/DC and proper like hard rock bands, and they've really have shedded that sound. Like, so yeah, I think like when is it called like Language, Sex and Violence and Pour the Ping, they went back to a heavier sound, and then they've gone straight back to the middle of the road sort of like strum guitar, growly kind of tracks.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because I don't mind. Yeah, I mean, the first 2 albums have some decent singles on it, but yeah, since then I haven't loved anything. But shall we go through the playlist?
Let's do it.
Over underrated.
So what's your first pick, Robin? I guess this was a bit of a collaborative playlist, but let's say the first 3 are songs that you definitely picked. So yeah, why don't you take us through them and why you picked them?
Okay, so first one's Local Boy in the Photograph, which I picked because I think I think it's really good. I haven't really understood the brief, have I?
no. I mean, you can pick good and bad songs for a band, right? Yeah. So this is one that you do like. Yeah, I
really like it, and it's based on it's based on true story, very sad story, and I think the lyrics are really, really good, very, very evocative and powerful, and I think it's like. Yeah, it's a really good tune, and I think maybe what's interesting about them is there was all that potential at the start. They were almost literary. They were telling stories, and it just kind of seemed to get blander as they went on. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I suppose maybe what I'm talking about with them is when you hear the later stuff, it's sort of like where did that spark go a bit?
I mean, yeah, I still think that this may be their best single. In fact, listening to it today, I could kind of hear it's kind of close to Ash's sound as well, really, for me. Also, another three-piece. That I guess back then they were, like your friend's pub band who've done good kind of thing,
Yeah.
like the everyman wearing a t-shirt, having a beer with the Stereophonics.
Yeah. They did once call an album "Keep Calm and Carry On" as well.
Oh dear,
that's good. But yeah.
Remember when Wayne Rooney got the just enough education to perform tattooed on his arm?
I did not remember that.
I mean,
Tell me
out
more.
of all the albums you could choose, really, the most bland album of all time for 16-year-old Wayne Rooney. But yeah, I think it's kind of strange because like it hasn't really got like an instant catchy chorus you can sing along to, like in my head. But it just drives forward. And it's got like a decent riff. It's kind of a bit buried, but yeah, it's just it's an earworm, and I don't hide from it now if it comes on the radio. Babs?
The first time I heard this was preparing for this podcast. I'd never heard about it. I didn't even know that they had an album before Performance and Cocktails. And it sounds like such an interesting album because it's about their hometown, which I'm going to try and pronounce. But I think it's Quamaman, something like that. Sorry, Welsh speakers.
Yeah, I'm not going to try either.
So yeah, it's funny that you say Ash. I guess I wasn't really making the connection there. For me, it sounded much more like Mannix and early Radiohead. That's what came to me.
Oh, well, there was a big thing at the time, like almost is this the new Mannix kind of thing?
Which, is that whole, they're both from Wales. So
yeah.
So let's compare. And I feel like, literally no other song on this playlist would I think that. But here I was like, oh yeah, this isn't a million miles away from Motorcycle Emptiness.
Yeah, but it was also a bit literary and it was, working class and... Yeah, I don't know. I can see the connection. But yeah, you're right. It's just putting two Welsh bands together, really, isn't it? But yeah.
For me, it was fine. I said it was a solid 3 stars. I enjoyed it more on repeated listens because I think it's like Fran said, it doesn't hook you in immediately. And that is, I think, the case for me and Ash as well. I'll be coming back to that. And I mean, Robin, you mentioned the story, and it is based on a real story of a boy who jumped in front of a train. And I will be bringing up some incredible YouTube comments that I've seen on some Stereophonics songs, because what I do love about doing this podcast, especially when we do our Eurovision episodes, Robin, because we do one every year, nice. It is how just, these days, thankfully, when you go on YouTube and you see comments, it's just positive. People are commenting because they love it. So even when it's the most trashy, tuneless Eurovision song, people are like, yes, Romania, we love you, 12 points from Germany. Yeah. And there was this incredible comment which was from @JoeWalker643, and he said, I'm a train driver who has had to deal with more than my fair share of fatal incidents, and after my last one, my brother, who loves his music and is also a driver, shared this with me. I've never felt angry towards the people who take their lives on the railway. You have to be pretty desperate to go out that way. I have my own little reminders now and then. You pass that spot, same time of day, similar weather, and it creeps back in. I usually give this a listen when I get home, and I think about the families who have to carry that pain around with them. The song captures all of these first moments in the pain of memory so well. It helps me feel not so alone in it. Which I'm like, this is poetry on YouTube.
That's beautiful.
So beautiful.
Well, that song really has touched a lot of people, because of that.
I read as well, I think that the father of the boy who it was about saw Stereophonics play at their gig and then went and thanked Kelly Jones for writing it. So, that's it. And I have more positive comments coming from other Stereophonics songs. So it's nice to see.
But to be fair, I've never found a diehard Stereophonics fan. So are there that many out there?
Well, I will tell you what. I wonder if he'll be listening. I had a call with a client of mine. I'm a communications freelancer on Friday, and he was wearing a Stereophonics t-shirt. And I was like, oh my God, you have no idea what I'm talking about. And he was like, yeah, I saw them in concert. Every time I go to a concert, if I like it, I'll buy a t-shirt. I love them. He was he wasn't diehard, but he was very positive about them. So.
Yeah, you may get one anchor DM from Wayne Rooney, but apart from that, I'm fine.
I remember I worked with a Welsh guy when I was in Bristol who was going to see them in Cardiff the night after work. And he said, I know what he'll say when he'll come out. He'll go, hello, Cardiff. And it's like, is that it? Is that as good as the banter gets? You know what I mean?
So we move on to your next pick, Robin.
So next up is Have a Nice Day. And this is where it gets very meat and two veg rock, doesn't it? Because there's not a great deal going on in this song, is there? It sounds like you've just kind of walked into Top Man. I'm just not a fan of this song, I guess. It's a bit bland, isn't it?
It's really strange because he was signed up to be a BBC scriptwriter at some point in his life.
I did not know that.
Yeah, no, yeah. So he studied at university, and I believe at the same year he got signed. He also got given a BBC contract to be a
Wow.
scriptwriter, which is why I think in a lot of videos he does reference a lot of
Hmm.
films. He's a massive film fan. So when you like come across this, it's like, I mean, how lazy can you be? And yeah, the idea is that he went to San Francisco and he went in a cab driver and he had a conversation, and that was
Yeah.
it. I thought, okay,
And the guy said, "Have a
that'll be
nice
a song.
day." Is that yeah?
Yeah, I mean, this is literally three chords the entire way through, and I mean, this has got number 5 in the charts. I have no
Yeah.
idea. It's so bland, and yeah, I cannot believe this is the same band. 2 years later, we're doing Bartender and a Thief and etc. It's yeah, I feel sorry for Stuart Cable
Oh
because
yeah.
I think like for this album, he's just literally just like doing the most slow, boring drum bits for the entire time. No wonder he quit the band. Well, he got sacked in the end, didn't he? But yeah, not for me at all. And I'm shocked why this is still played heavily.
You hear it a lot. It's one of those songs where I don't think I've never consciously played it, but I swear I bet I know every single word. Do you know what I mean? It's just by osmosis, it's in there.
And I'm not a big fan of any chorus that just goes ba ba ba
Yeah.
ba ba ba. Like, come
Yeah.
on, yeah. Babs.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to listen to it as objectively as I could to be like, right, okay, let's try and not feel like this is one of those songs that was everywhere, but it was difficult. I would say that, looking through Stereophonics discography, I'm like, is this as, let's say, annoying as Just Looking or Bartender and the Thief? Maybe it is close. But I think, the fact that it is only a couple of chords and it's a bit whiny, it's not great. But I do like the synth flourishes and the slide guitar bits in the bridge, but I've written, of course, the bar 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 gets on your nerves.
I really like Bartender and the Thief as well. That's a really interesting song. And they're using weird guitar tunings. Let's try and be really positive. What's something positive we could say about Have a Nice Day? Sometimes like a band just needs to write a song that will get on the radio.
Well, again, Robin, if you want to feel positivity, go and look at the YouTube comments because like literally it's people being like, oh, I was having a really shit day and then I put this song on and I felt a lot better.
And then I had a nice day.
Then he had a nice day. I mean, Fran, you mentioned the story about it is based on a real cab ride that they had in San Francisco, but it said that when they got in the cab, the first thing the cab driver said to them was, I hate this place. It's full of tourists and processed fish, which do end up in the lyrics. I think it was literally like they had a wacky taxi driver. They, as soon as they got out of the cab, wrote everything down and just decided to write a song. So, hey, get your inspiration where you can.
Maybe well, again, that's something that's like a lot more interesting than maybe it comes across. You know what I mean? Like, because that is quite an interesting story.
It is an interesting story, definitely.
As a rock and roll band who are in their early 20s in America on tour, is that the best story they had?
But do you remember the music video? Because I vaguely remember the music video for this, and then I went to watch it again, and I was like, yeah, is it referencing a film, Fran?
What you mean when it's like them in a white video with like loads of ladies and they start firing like arrows?
And the ladies are all young and glamorous
yeah.
and nubile, of course,
Yeah,
and almost naked.
yeah.
But when they start firing the arrows, they look really old. Suddenly, all their faces go really old. And that's their true face, and I'm like, so
because old people are ugly.
Old people,
the message?
People who can fire magical lasers, gross. But in the music video, is it Richard and Stuart are playing their instruments, but Kelly the whole time he's pinned up on like a target board kind of thing, the kind that magicians would throw swords at, and he's surrounded by balloons, and when the women fire the lasers at him, it pops the balloons, and he's just there the whole time standing like this, and I'm like, is this some crucifix? Like what is the meaning? I don't get it.
It looks a little bit Kubrick art direction wise, but I don't know if it's actually referencing a film.
So Robin, what would you like your next pick to be?
What should we do, Mr. Writer? Because this is one you chose, right?
Yes.
And I'm afraid to say I tried to listen to it today and I couldn't get past 30 seconds of it. I'm so sorry. I don't know why. Maybe it's like
Agree.
It's just a traumatic.
Okay, I know Fran has an excuse for trauma, but I don't know if you do, Robin. Okay.
No, I just found it's so kind of plodding, and also it's a kind of song. Van Morrison always does this, where he includes a song in his albums, later albums, which is always like a dig at music journalists, And I think it's sort of just it's kind of like. It makes you sound bitter, I think, doesn't it? I mean, that's what this song's about, right? It was aimed at music journalists, isn't it?
So what I read was that there was a live album by the Stereophonics called, I absolutely wrote it down, Don't Let the Devil Take Another Day. And when I think he's about
I'm
to
surprised it wasn't called the Stereophonics live album.
But I will say, okay, apart from Keep Calm and Carry On, they do have some good album titles. I will give them that. Just Enough Education to Perform, I think, is a good album title.
You've got to go there to come back.
Yeah, why not?
Well, you do. That's one of those ones that maybe the more you think about it,
and do you know the where the language, sex, violence, other comes from?
No.
It comes from the Go ahead, Fran.
Before you see a film, it's in the what's it called? It's the BBS.
Yeah. They saw it on the back of a James Dean DVD. But yeah, just going back to the story of is it about journalists or not? Basically, he said, contrary to popular belief, I don't hate journalists. This song took me about 15 minutes to write and about 15 years to explain, but it was about a relationship with a guy that came on the road with us, and he had his version of events, and I had mine.
Okay. Right.
So I don't know. He could be fucking with everyone, right? Like he could have just been saying that to build on the mystique. But
well, I remember when at the time when this came out, it felt like because they'd had so many bad reviews, maybe for the second album, that it was like them kind of having a go back at the journalists. But so that's why I've always kind of written it off as that kind of song, like a Van Morrison style song where you don't know what they're writing about or something. It's but I just find it's so plodding. There's nothing. I don't find anything really interesting about this song.
I mean, Fran, before I try and defend it, it sounds like you feel very similarly.
Oh yeah, I mean, even the keyboard sound is just horrid. I guess that is a change of direction. Obviously, having a
horrid keyboard sound.
yeah.
We embrace that direction. Yeah.
Some engineer finally found that sound after.
I want it to sound bad.
But yeah, I was just the first time I heard it, I thought, oh shit, what's happened to them? And then it's got like 9.2 million views on YouTube. It's a top 5 hit. It's played constantly. I was like, okay, I'm just not connecting with the rest of the UK, I guess.
I know, but like it's funny as well, isn't it? Because I remember I was at uni when it came out, I think, and my friend Jenny, and I mean I was a pompous twat at university, as you can probably tell, because I'm a pompous twat now.
many of us were.
But like I remember my friend saying like, shut up, I know what you're going to say. I really like this song, all right? So you got to respect that. Some people like it.
Yeah, I'm really surprised just because, so this is literally the only Stereophonics song I have saved and the only Stereophonics song that I listen to regularly. I like the evolution of sound. I think it sounds quite trip hoppy at the beginning. I like the piano in the bridge. I like the and the creepy sounds and the processed guitars. And yeah, I've got the music video still here because I very, very much remember the music video, and it was kind of creepy in a stylish way. So I would have been 13, 14 at the time, and I was quite a sensitive child and scared by many things. But for me, it was just on the edge of like, oh, this feels a bit dangerous and weird. But I'm quite enjoying it. When I was reading about the inspirations behind it, it really surprised me. They'd been listening to Stevie Wonder and a song called Maybe Your Baby. I don't know if you know it, but I went and listened to that song, and you could have tried, if you'd asked me what song inspired this, I could have named 10,000 other songs before coming to this, because Maybe Your Baby is a very slow, very funky song. To me, not many similarities there. I think it's really catchy, and I think I've detached. I again, Fran and I famously, if you listen to this podcast, don't really pay much attention to lyrics, and I just detached the fact that it was maybe him slagging off journalists, and because I was so young when I heard this song, I just didn't really maybe think it was anything of importance. I just enjoyed the sound, but clearly I'm in the minority here.
That's interesting, because I think if I would have said if there was an influence on this song, I'd say it was Ballad of a Thin Man by Bob Dylan, because it's got the same kind of descending chord sequence, and also that is very kind of bitterly taking aim at a critic. So I mean, again, looking at a positive spin on it, but maybe it's I always thought it was them trying to do something like that, and maybe referencing that as well.
It's so interesting, isn't it, though? It's like I said, literally this is the only Stereophonic song I have saved and ever kind of connected with, and both of you are like, it's so bad that I can't even get past the first 30 seconds. I mean, that is
I guess it's early noughties trauma, isn't it? I guess.
Oh, that's the gosh, so much chat about trauma. I wasn't expecting that.
Over underrated.
I'm a reformed music snob. I absolutely was when I was a teenager. And I think sometimes when I listen to the poppier songs that I liked from that era that made it through despite me being like, oh no, Muse and Radiohead are the only good bands. It is the memories a lot of the time as well, isn't it? It's like listening with your friends or dancing to it in nightclubs and, I don't know, having hopefully non-traumatic festival experiences.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And that's they used to be a really, really good, do you know Robert Newman? The stand-up, he used to be...
Yes. Yeah.
He used to do a really good bit. This is ages ago, back when he was, in Mary Whitehouse Experience or something, where he said he got a Clash album, and it played at he played it at the wrong speed. So I can't remember if he played it too fast or too slow, but he basically made himself like it. Like even like it didn't hit him on any level, and he realised afterwards he was playing it at the wrong speed, but he made himself like it. And I think there's a lot of, I think that for me that really rings true about when you're young, particularly with spending money on records, where you kind of actually just like you think I'm going to really try and get into this, like and it's and then like you with the perspective of a few years, you look back and go, God, that wasn't actually that good. There is one particular noughties band which I won't mention really, because again, I don't really like slagging stuff off, but like I do not understand why I listened to them as much as I did.
What other noughties song have you picked? Should we do Dakota next and then finish?
Yeah, let's do Dakota. Yeah, I mean, let's face facts. This is a great song, isn't it? It is really good.
It's okay, but I will leave you to.
Yeah, what do you think, Fran? You nodded your head.
Well, I remember I listened to it on the radio, then I went to my weekly pub quiz and announced that I've just heard the best song of 2005. But at the time, 100 plays later, it's maybe diminishing returns, but it was again. It was unexpected after writing Stereophonics, after hearing "Have a Nice Day" and Had Banks and Glad Bags being played.
Oh God, I forgot about that one. Yeah, that was relentless.
And Mr. Writer, and basically, like the Radio 2 play, and then suddenly, okay, they've tried. Is it a phase keyboard or is it a guitar? I don't know what the first
kind of
instrument
synth,
you hear is.
From phasing on.
Yeah. Then okay. They're trying something different. It's got like a double chorus thing going on. I'm a big fan of a double chorus. Yeah, it's instant. But yeah, like I said before, I think maybe now people may pop it into the Sex on Fire mid-naughty songs overly played and played too many indie discos and too many talent contests. But I think it's one of the best songs.
It's good. It's really simple as well. It's really nice melody and it's that major seventh. It sounds really nice. It's got very, very nice playing an A major 7, hitting that G sharp. It sounds lovely.
We do like hearing people go into that music theory. It rarely happens. Usually people go, it's got a good beat, this one.
The production is nice.
Yeah, but that major 7th is like a naturally beautiful chord, and because it's got a kind of slight dissonance to it. So if you think like A is the root note and you're basically singing almost an octave above it but one semitone lower, it always has a very, very like quite beautiful sound. There's a note of longing to it, So
is it a cynical? Is that a cynical way of getting a hint?
Oh no, I don't think so. I mean,
no?
I don't know. It's just good. I mean, it's sometimes. I think that, like I said, it's very good that they did try and reinvent themselves. I think, and just to do something so simple, just a few chords as well. It's good.
But yeah, I mean, this was a UK number one. It's got over 31 million views on YouTube, which is insane. But obviously, you had moved country by then, Babs. So was this played at all?
I think it was, but not to the same extent. Like, I definitely wasn't traumatized by this song in the way I was by Just Looking or Handbags and Glad Rags, which I really had kind of erased from my mind. So it's not that I don't dislike this song. For me, it's another, 3 stars, maybe pushing to 3.5 stars on a replay. And I guess, it's got some more synth sounds, which feels a bit like an evolution. So maybe that's why it made such an impact. Although I think it made an impact in the US in a way they hadn't before. So maybe, it just stands alone, nothing to do with the evolution of sound. And I think if you don't like Kelly's voice, here, it's much less sharp. It's much more smoothed down, much less rough. But the lyrics are some of the blunt. Having just said, I don't pay attention to the lyrics. Holy crap!
Yeah,
the lyrics are about nothing at all, and the drumming. It's not usually something I pay attention to, but it adds absolutely nothing to the song.
It's pretty motoric style, isn't it? Yeah,
It's really
that's
interesting.
interesting. I'm curious as well because was this like popular with that whole kind of noughties indie thing?
It was. I remember like this would appear on like compilation. I was still buying compilations like best indie hits of 2005, and so yeah, I think it's still you hear it alongside like Kasabian. And I think there were still like semi-popular indie band back in 2005, maybe for the last time.
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel like this was their last popular song, perhaps.
It's a thrill, but yeah, it's just been overplayed.
Before we move to our final pick, I just like to read out another bit of YouTube poetry, if that's okay. So this is from the Dakota video from Sean Layman 7519. They say,
yeah, he's a good guy.
Yeah, good guy, best mate, right? So they say, strange how music can act as a tap to such specific and detailed memories. I hit, I mean, okay, get ready, Robin, because this is lovely.
The subtext of all these comments is you were just young. That's all it was. You know?
That is, I mean, I get so many comments are like, yes, I was 20 and now I'm 38 and I'm still listening to this. But yeah, hold tight, because this is quite nice. So he says, when I hear this song, I remember standing at a bus stop with this in my Discman waiting to go to work in a little train station bookstore I worked in. It was 2005 and I was in the midst of some relationship tumult that would ultimately result in the end of that relationship. It felt like the end of the world. I remember the cold and the road looking slick and wet. I remember the smell of grass, moss and wet black soil. I remember wondering what might happen next. Not 6 months later, I was living in Tokyo and singing the song in a karaoke booth under a few too many cups of sake. Now I think about it all again in my middle years. Moments of seeming finality and significance that are now just little bumps in the road, just as this moment will be in 5 or 10 or 20 years' time.
It's beautiful stuff, isn't it?
Honestly.
I found an amazing YouTube comment under an Ocean Colour Scene video. I just found it here.
How long has this been saved to your phone?
I love this. I found my platform to share this.
I think I tweeted it at the time. It's like, I was watching Ocean Colour Scene videos on YouTube. I don't know. But here we go. I haven't got the username. Turning 18, Ben Sherman shirts, friends, freedom and alcohol. The 90s were the best years to be young. Now I'm the tragic 40-year-old man that I despised back then.
Oh, no.
Poor guy.
Poor guy.
He's just nostalgic.
Yeah.
Nostalgia is a
Yeah. Oh, we have done Ocean Colour Scene. Shout out to Tim College on the podcast that he picked as underrated.
Underrated. That's interesting. Because I think the other thing to remember about the 90s is that music journalism could be absolutely horrible in a way that is completely unrecognisable now. And in some ways you miss that, but Ocean Colour Scene just did not get any good reason, and they weren't like that bad. You know what I mean?
But it was really nasty. There's actually I had a Stereophonics review that I wanted to read out because it's so horrible. And you're like, well, I'm on the side of Kelly et al. Here. So this was an Observer Music Monthly review of Just Enough Education to Perform by Tony Heyman, and he said, regardless of their level of education, the Stereophonics clearly have no performing qualities whatsoever. If they are suggesting a connection between formal education and musical ability, there must be 4 illiterate morons who were expelled from play school for being too thick. And then he called the album musical excrement scooped unhygienically from a poorly maintained squat toilet in an area without adequate sanitation. He suggested if it wasn't laminated, the CD insert booklet could be distributed to third world communities as toilet paper. I mean, calm down. Calm down.
Yeah, that is really bad. And I think there's also, obviously there's a huge amount of snobbery in that as well, isn't there? And I don't know. That's really bad. The band I often think of is Slow Dive, who were they're still going brilliantly, which is great because they've survived this thing and they survived all the trends and everything. But when Britpop came along, they just literally would not have been reviewed, and they were just, if they did get reviews, they were so out of time and just so unfashionable. That's the thing that as well that happened with Britpop is all that really quite interesting late 80s, early 90s indies was just swept away and just seen as embarrassing and it's so bad.
Yeah.
Even a band like My Bloody Valentine, when did Loveless come out? It was 91?
91, yeah.
But when reading NME, in the maybe 94, 95, My Bloody Valentine didn't even get mentioned ever. This Seismic album came out only a few years previously and never ever got mentioned as being an important record of that era. It's so weird.
It is strange. Like you'd have bands who'd be headlining like Reading Festival, like Ride or The Wonder Stuff in 92,
Yeah.
93. Then by 94, oh no, they don't exist anymore. Like, how can 1 year pass and they can be
Exactly.
dismissed as if they never
But
existed?
I think
It's
that
really
is the
weird.
British music press over maybe any other music press, where you just
Yeah.
have so much talent in your aisles, but it's so the fashion dictates it so much, because the thing with the British music press, as with the tabloids and everything, they love to build people up to then tear them down, you know. And so it's like, if someone's hot stuff, the press will absolutely obsess about them. You'll read articles nonstop, and if they make one misstep, then it's, you know, back of the queue. Fran and I often talk about how, you know, there are lots and lots of bands that, you know, have been going strong. You know, one of my personal favorites that we talked about, Blood Red Shoes. You know, they're still touring, they're still releasing albums. You know, years. I think they're celebrating 20 years next year together. And yeah, when do you ever see them talked about or reviewed? There's lots of examples like that. And the thing is, like, with the review that I read out, like, it is quite, you know, out of context, it is quite funny and it is quite well written.
Yeah.
Is the thing. But it's like, but it is just the bile of it. Is it really necessary? I mean, it does remind me a bit of what you're saying about your friend Robin. Like, before you say anything, I like this song, so don't you know, don't
But
ruin
like,
it for me.
I mean, I think there's a lot of classism about it as well. Like, I think you know, Oasis aren't my favorite band, but like I think a lot of the criticism of them, you know, that thing of like calling people thick and stuff is really, really shit, isn't it? And you know, I think, you know, when people criticize the fact, oh, Oasis lyrics were rubbish or whatever, but like, that's clearly not the point, because it's communicating on an emotional level, and you know, you just have to look at all the thousands of people singing along to realize that, you know, interesting lyrics, quote unquote, aren't important in the same way with a band like that.
I think Fran and I would agree.
Yeah. No, it's all about connection, isn't
totally.
it? But I guess, I mean, these days the power dynamic of the journalist to the artist has completely changed. You know, back in the 90s, you'd only find out about a band through that magazine. Now with social media, they don't really need critics because they've got 100 million followers, and that magazine has like, you know, 0.5 million. So why should they care? So, you know, I think that's why people can't be nasty anymore, because they wouldn't get away with it. But I think, didn't Caitlin Moran give like Silver Sun like a 0 out of 10 and read out a eulogy to the band being dead?
Geez.
Oh shit! I didn't know that. But that was the culture, wasn't it? Like, yeah. But yeah, my music journalism is very piecemeal. It is like, from the social media that I follow, I will follow music publications. Then if a headline catches my eye, then I click on it and read it. And I really, you know, the best of the year lists as well. But yeah, I think I have very little time for snob. You know, of course, you can have an opinion about whether you like someone or not, but when it's very snobbish, or when it's very like you know, because it doesn't fall in this category, I don't like it. And there's this great quote from, maybe actually I can put it up. So here's the quote, I'll read out. So this is Dave McCullough in Sounds in 1979. He said, "Rock stars and their audiences blindly perpetuate and correspond to each other. Rock becomes a habit. People collect rock like they collect stamps or old clothes. They can't break off the habit and face that frightening photo called change." I love that. Because I know those rock fans. Definitely, and I used to be one of them.
So we discussed the final pick.
Yeah.
Let's
and we're doing Mama Told Me Not to Come, right?
We are.
Technically a Tom Jones song, I guess, but
yes, I kind of put this one forward because I think it's an interesting song to talk about, but also because I think this is a very interesting album and time for Tom Jones, because this is certainly how I discovered Tom Jones. I like this song. I unironically like this album. I own it. There is a fantastic cover version of All Mine by Portishead with Tom Jones and Divine Comedy, which is genuinely creepy. I mean, you look shocked. I know. It sounds crazy, but it's very good. I knew it was a cover version, obviously, because all the songs on that album are cover versions. But had either of you ever heard any of the originals before?
I think I've heard the Animals version, maybe.
There's an Animals version and Three Dog Night version.
I think I've heard that one, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because the Animals version. So for sure, Kelly and Tom have the best voices of anyone. But the Animals version, Eric Burden has a really funny voice. There's a bit more character to it.
Yeah.
And the Three Dog Night. Yeah, he really does. I didn't even know his name before doing this. And the Three Dog Night version has a really fun kind of amped up guitar solo, and this kind of ramps up towards the end. But I do think this is the the superior version. And I do remember it being played a reasonable amount, but Burning Down the House was played way more. So I'm not too traumatized by this. Are either of you?
I think it was just so, it was always on. So it just feels like walking into a service station or something. It just feels, we've gone from Top Man to a service station.
The whole gamut of shops with the Stereophonics.
Yeah, I just found, I mean, I do like Tom Jones, and I do think he's, I've forgotten that Portishead cover.
Let's check it out.
I think his son started to manage them in the 90s, which is why he suddenly started to want to work with like the pop musicians. And I remember like Rock Profile, Dave Williams and Matt Lucas. I remember there was the album Tom Jones. I've been hanging out with Tears for Fears and with the phone, like, you know, he had never heard of the Cardigans. He had never heard of any bands. When suddenly he's in the studio with them.
Burning Down the House.
Sex bomb. I'm sure he knew the Stereophonics, but I'm pretty sure he had never heard of everybody else on the album.
Wasn't he did a kind of almost Johnny Cash-esque, kind of tried to do like a Johnny Cash kind of Hurt style album thing. But he basically said, like, if that's what they want, if that sells, that I'll do it. You know.
Did either of you look at the music video as well? Because I did remember, like, they were at a house party.
Yeah. I mean, so they meet like an older lady. Eventually drinks a drink and then passes out.
In the bathroom.
As if, like Tom Jones is like giving her like a roof feed.
Oh, I didn't even think about it like that. Oh.
And then they have a party. Then she wakes up and goes, Jones?
But don't forget, Reese Stephens is there looking up women's skirts, which is marvelous as well. For no reason. I just thought she wasn't feeling very well and passed out in the bathroom. And Tom Jones was like, "Well, fuck it, I'm here with my boys, the Stereophonics, still gonna party it on up." But yeah, I think there were some of the all the YouTube comments are like, Tom Jones, what a legend. But one of them was saying like, "Oh, you know, every time the Stereophonics like say a word or sing a line, they are all looking up at Tom Jones quite adoringly." And it's true. It is quite sweet how kind of in awe they are at him. But yeah, weird music video, weird choice of song.
Apparently they recorded it face to face.
Oh, okay.
They were in two booths opposite each other, so they could literally sing to each other.
Is it
to get that beautiful Welsh chemistry together?
But to finish up, so Fran, overrated?
To be still headlining festivals 25 years later. And I can't think of a decent track in more than 15 years. So I would say overrated. I mean, they haven't really tested themselves as far as I know. And I had a brief check through the albums before recording it just to see if they've released some bangers without me knowing about it. And no. But they basically each album is a copy of the last. And yeah, I mean, Kelly's doing his thing. I guess the fans are happy. But for me, you know, I think they probably peaked, in the mid noughties. So yeah, for me, overrated. I think they've got like 3.7 million Spotify plays.
3.25 million per month, which is high.
And it has so many number one hits. I mean, mainly in the UK, obviously. Like I said, I don't think they're really known outside the UK at all. So, but UK wise, for me, overrated.
Yeah, I was really surprised when I saw that Spotify statistic because I thought that is far more than I thought it would be. And when we get to Ash is so much less than I thought it would be. Did you check the cities, Fran? Are they all in the UK? Yeah, they are. It's London, Manchester, Birmingham, Glasgow, Dublin are the top 5 cities on Spotify. So there we go.
No Cardiff.
But I'm guessing smaller population, maybe. Yeah, I do think they are overrated. I do enjoy some of their songs, but when I saw that Spotify number, I thought that is a lot of songs. And when David Bowie asked them to support him, that absolutely blows my mind. When David Bowie obviously has always been friendly with a lot of newer acts. I'm like, really? There was no one else. I think they. I'm not angry. I'm not angry about it in the same way that I am angry that Oasis are as big as they are, because I have many more issues with, Oasis's music, posture, everything. So, Kelly, keep drinking from the well of youth and entertaining us all. And, I hope you can make a living. Happy for any musician to make a living. But yeah, I did see that the latest album, is it called Ochia or something like that, did get good reviews. So I did wonder, is it worth kind of dipping in a little bit to more recent ones? But it sounds like maybe I shouldn't, Fran.
I'm sure there's far more interesting music out there for you to listen to, Babs. I mean, the whole of the 90s. Listen to the whole of the 90s, and then once you're done, maybe go back to the Stereophonics.
Okay, I'll start with Word Gets Around. Okay. Robin, anything else you want to add on the Stereophonics before we go to part 2?
Yeah, I'll say they're overrated, but it's fine if you like them. You know, I just want to sound kind of neutral.
That's the end of part 1.
Do you like music and do you like podcasts? Chances are you like music podcasts. Take this one for example, Pick a Disc. I'm Matt Latham, and every fortnight a guest comes on to Pick a Disc to talk about an album for any reason that they want to. They'll talk about the album as a whole, we talk about the songs, we talk about any personal stories about the album, and if they've ever seen the band live, and all sorts of other crazy tangents. And if at any point any of that made you want to listen to Pick a Disc, then you can find us on your podcast apps of choice or on the Facebooks and Twitters and Instagram under Pick a Disc. We're also on the We Made This Podcast Network on WeMadeThisNetwork.com and on Twitter at we_made_this. Goodbye.
Underrated.
And welcome back to part 2. We have discussed the Stereophonics, and now for Robin's underrated pick. So, Robin, who have you chosen and why?
So the band I've chosen as being underrated is Ash. And that's because particularly the early stuff, I think, is so good. And it just had an incredibly profound effect on me. It sounds kind of ridiculous, to be honest, but honestly, that the album, the mini album trailer, completely changed my life. It's a really important record for me. I think it's absolutely brilliant. So, yeah, and so I think they're underrated because when they went on to do, you know, Girl from Mars in 1977, and then carried on, and it's brilliant that they're still going. I think it's absolutely brilliant. Well, I think it's not that they lost something, it's just that they grew up. And I think there's something so perfect about Trailer, about how young they were when they made it. And it doesn't quite... 1977, they were trying... I mean, it was produced by Oasis's producer, wasn't it? And it was really trying to be this big, kind of quite glam record. And I don't think that style particularly suited them as much, maybe. I think there's just something really, really interesting and special about Trailer and the first 3 singles, and I love it. I absolutely love it.
So, were you... was that 1994, 95, so were you into it then?
Yeah, this goes back to the importance of Mark Radcliffe and Mark Riley's Radio 1 show, which was so important in developing my taste and so many other people I've met. I mean, they would have Simon Armitage on talking about poetry. They would have Will Self on talking about novels. They'd have Mark Kermode on talking about films. I know it sounds very blokey when I talk about it now. But they also had Katie Puckrick on, who was really funny, talking about America. It was incredibly funny, but it was also just an education. Like, I found out about so many bands, so many books, so many films. And yeah, some of the music they were playing at the time, like Gorky's. I wanted to do Gorky's for this, but I couldn't think of a kind of good comparison point. But I remember like being in Wales, because my mum's Welsh, and being at my grandma's and hearing Gorky's for the first time, and I just loved it, and I loved it was Miss Trudy, and I just loved it so much, and I still do. And he also. And Mark Radcliffe played Uncle Pat, and it was just one of those songs where, you know, I heard it and my ears pricked up, and I just absolutely loved it and got the album. So really, why I like it so much is because it reminds me of that really formative experience where it just felt like every night I would discover so much new stuff that was so interesting, and it would make you laugh as well.
Were you too young to see them live? When did you first see them live, if you have seen them live?
I saw them live I saw them live at the Fleece in Bristol in 1995 on the last day of year 9.
Oh, amazing!
Was really was that one of your first gigs, or?
Yeah, I think so. Actually, no, that my first gig was also Ash. It was 94, so I was really young actually to go into a gig, because I guess I was 13. It was Bristol in 94. That was brilliant. Yeah, because the first gig I saw was Ash with Sleeper and Suede at the Anson Rooms.
That's a great venue and a great lineup.
Yeah, it was a good lineup. Yeah, yeah, Suede were brilliant, and Suede are still great. Aren't they?
Yeah, so still got it. So Babs, what are your thoughts on early Ash? When did you first discover them?
So when did I first discover them? I definitely discovered them. I definitely had discovered them by the early to mid noughties because I remember Tipexing the lyrics to Burn Baby Burn on an exercise book because when I moved to Luxembourg, we were allowed Tipex, which seemed to be like a heathen product and material when I was at school in the UK. When you did exam, how dare you bring in Tipex? When I was at school in Luxembourg, they did not give a shit. So I remember having an exercise book with lots of lyrics. I am definitely an Ash fan. I saw them live for the first time at Warwick Student Union for their Meltdown tour. And that really got me on board. And I saw them quite recently in 2018 in Antwerp at the Kafka venue, which is really, really small, where Mark Hamilton made very intense eye contact with previous guest Richard's partner. It was a very small venue, and he is quite a very tall, imposing guy. A very small venue, which is there, like, playing bass with his eyes. And they were incredible both times. I think on the Meltdown tour, I think I knew Orpheus, and that was it. And I fell in love with that album. And really liked it. I do own Free All Angels, which I bought at a shopping centre in Monaco, as you do. I was on holiday with my family, and it has Candy in French as a bonus track.
Wow.
Which is, he's got a great accent. And actually, maybe the first time I saw Ash was them doing that on Top of the Pops, and that's what got me into them. But they are power pop / pop punk, which is not one of my favourite genres. However, I think they get away with it better than anyone else. So I feel like on an initial listening, especially earlier Ash, it starts and I'm like, oh, this is just too damn melodic, but it does always get me. But I would say that my era of Ash is more Nuclear Sounds, Free All Angels and Meltdown. Basically Charlotte Hathley.
Yeah, she's great. Her solo album's really good as well.
It's really good. Kim Wilde, great song. I think also as a female rock fan, really not seeing yourself at all, her coming into the band was quite important because it was like, oh my god, they've chosen a girl, and she was almost a girl. She was 19, I think, when they hired her, and yeah, she could rock out on the guitar just as well as everyone. So that did feel quite formative of like, oh, this band that seemed quite popular and everyone liked. So I would say, yeah, I'm not there. They're maybe not one of my favorite bands, but I am a fan, and I don't really know Trader era. So coming into this, Robin, I'd heard one of the 3 Trader songs that you put on here, and I didn't know the other 2. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into it. But Fran, it sounds like you heard and knew about Ash, and I'm guessing you liked them almost from the beginning.
Not from the beginning.
Okay.
I was late into the indie world. In the mid-90s, I started listening to Duran Duran.
You listened to New Wave, yes.
Duran, Aha, Talk, obviously.
As you do, yeah.
And Japan as a 15-year-old. So I think the first Ash song I heard was probably Goldfinger.
Yeah.
And then I loved a track we're going to mention, Life is Ordinary. And then I guess, like many people, apart from Babs, we were confused by Nuclear Sounds. Like, oh, this is a change of direction. And then, I forgot about them until they released Shining Light. And then there's a new application on my computer called Napster. And that was the first album I downloaded illegally from Napster. I'm sorry, guys. I did buy it on CD later on. And it was during the Napster era when some songs came up I hadn't heard before, including Jack Names the Planets and Petrol. And that's when I then discovered that they had Trader. Of course, back in 1996, you're unaware of these EPs unless you had a finger on the pulse at the time. So, yeah, I discovered it way later. And then I think the first time I saw Ash was Reading 2002.
Okay.
Probably at the peak. It was Ash, Muse, and Foo Fighters in that order.
Okay, well.
And then I've just seen, unfortunately for me, I've seen Ash just slowly play further down the pecking order at festivals, and now they're the middle of the day, and they play Girl on Mars, Burn Baby Burn, and one new one, then gets dismissed after 30 minutes, and I think it's a shame because I've listened to all of their albums. I saw them in 2010 and had Russell is it Liak from Block Party.
Mm-hmm.
He replaced Charlotte live.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
Yeah, no, they're thrilling. I saw them at Coco 2010, an amazing gig. But I've not seen them be better than that because unfortunately I've seen them at festivals when people just want to hear the 4 songs they know, and that's it.
I'm just always so glad they're doing so well. Like, I follow them all the socials. I haven't really checked into all the albums, but I've always just got such fondness for them, that I will always support them. And I haven't seen them play recently, but I would really like to. And I really liked Envy. Envy's a really good song. I saw they recorded that they had a new album out this year. Came out quite
They do.
recently. Actually, I think it
Recently.
came out last week, didn't it?
Yeah, they got to number 14 in the chart. I believe it's the first time in 20 years.
And it's on Fierce Panda as well, isn't it?
Yep.
And they recorded the video for it in a really good pub in Brixton, which is, if you ever heard the Barry Glendenning episode of Moon Underwater, it's that pub, which is quite weird. but
He's also Irish, so I don't know. That's a random connection.
Yeah. But just I don't know. So it's just always a thing where I just always felt I don't really have another band like it, because with Gorky's I followed them all the way through, and I still follow Aris's solo stuff. But with Ash, it's just like in Amber or something, and I just always have such fondness for that first mini album trailer and those first few singles and bits of pieces that they did after. And I don't know. I just
It's sometimes difficult when you have such love for a band's specific album or albums to move beyond. I have that sometimes where if it's not immediate, then you're like, but it's not as good, and why am I wasting time on this? No, let's just go back and listen to their other stuff. Because I guess I'm the one who maybe saw them the most recently in 2018. They did play a few songs from the album that they were touring at the time, Islands. And I remember I enjoyed all the songs from it, but especially Confessions in the Pool. And I listened to it today and I'm like, yep, it still holds up.
He can write a tune, Tim Wheeler. He can really
write a tune.
Yeah.
He can play a guitar. He can look very cute as well. And we'll come back to that.
So, Robin, what's your first pick today?
Well, let's go chronologically. So the first one's Jack Names the Planets. They recorded it originally as very scratchy, kind of 7-inch, and then they re-recorded it for Trailer. So the version I like is the version that's on Trailer. And yeah, what's so interesting is they're obviously coming right after Nirvana. So on Trailers, it is quite grungy, and they also used to be, I think they used to be in a band called Vietnam, which is such a bad band. But they were big like Iron Maiden heads. So if you get into metal, you really learn your chops as well, which is really good. Like, he's a really good guitarist, Tim Wheeler. But there's also like a punky influence as well, and also, like you say, really big power pop thing. And I always think they're a really, really good pop band. And they covered ABBA as well.
Excellent. 2 great ABBA covers, including "Lay All Your Love on Me," which is
I didn't know they did that.
Amazing.
They did what's the other one they did?
Was it Does Your Mother Know?
Yeah, Does Your Mother Know? That's it. Yeah. But yeah, Jack Names the Planets. I think what I love about music when you're getting into music when you're that age, particularly in a pre-internet age, is you don't know what it means. and
you can't look up the lyrics.
Yeah, well, I had the lyrics in the cassette, which I can now no longer read with my 42-year-old eyes. But but apparently he got the lyric from a Stephen King book. It's the chapter title in a Stephen King book. I forget which book.
I think The Talisman, if the internet tells me correctly.
Nice.
Yeah.
And it's just such an evocative title, and you already think, like, this is a band that's doing something slightly different, because it's so poetic. I think it's really, like, and it's just a brilliant song. It's just so good. And it's like, I mean, I know a guy who's an amazing jazz musician, and he said, I owe everything to Dookie by Green Day, because you learn one chord, which is a bar chord, like a 5 chord, and you can play every single song on Dookie. So which is amazing. So that gives you such a gift, and it's a similar thing if you're learning to play the guitar. The Jack Names the Planets is so simple, and it's just bar chords, and you can play it straight away. I used to cover it in my school band, and that was the other thing, is like they were just a few years older than me, so like they were like, so it just felt like almost we're nearly there. We could almost do that, and it was that kind of thing as well. Their life seemed so exciting, and it's like you'd look through all the photos and in the album sleeve. Same with Gorky's, like with the Gorky's album Patio, they were like such a similar age, and you just like, oh, why isn't my life that as exciting as that? But yeah, Jack Names the Planets. It's just brilliant. It's a great chorus. I mean, the lyrics are just superb as well. The lyrics are really good, I think.
I think if you were a teenager in the 90s, you had a lot of competition because you had Supergrass at also like 16 years old. It's like all these bands getting #1 albums at like 15 or 16, and you're there playing 4 chords on the acoustic, thinking, I'm not gonna make it. I was 22 when I first heard this, and I didn't get the start of it when there's like two like Dutch accents talking
Yeah,
about.
I never got that. But that's another great thing. I don't understand.
But do you know the
what
story
that is.
of that?
No, what's the story?
So the story is, it's two Dutch guys who he met. I think they met when they were touring. And one of them, his name is like Oscar something, but he's known as Oscar Wilde.
Oscar Wilde, yeah.
So it's quite funny because when you go on Wikipedia, it's like dialogue Oscar Wilde, and at the beginning I was like, what?
Yeah. And Patrick the Brewer, is that the other one?
Oh, that very well could be. I didn't write it down, but it's basically he met them and they were saying like, oh yeah, Jack Names the Planets. That's a good title, but you should call it Jack Names the Planets New Vennep, which is the town where they come from, which is like this tiny town, I think, between something like The Hague and Amsterdam.
Right.
And they were like, you should call it this.
Yeah, the center of the universe
is
is the planet New Vennep. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. Wow.
So
I
random.
didn't know that.
I didn't know that until today.
Yeah.
I watched the music videos and I had no idea that this song was in the film Angus, which was like a teen film from 1995, and I believe the opening song for that film Angus was a song from Love Spit Love / Psychedelic Furs called Am I Wrong, which is the best version. So the music video, it's got like an American music video with like loads of images from this big film with like Ash appearing on posters. It's like, this is a song that got it wasn't even a top 100 or something, and it's got this like quite expensive music video around it.
Very aha. I thought,
It's like, but yeah, for me, it's instant. I guess, it's like, if you were in a garage band and you came across this catchy chorus, you'd be the teen idol for, in your sixth form party. And I think this song got from Stein as well. This is the one that they noticed, I think, on their, I think it's called Garage Girl EP. And yeah, when they first heard this, I thought, yeah, we're signing it. But yeah, it's an awesome song, and I still think they play it live. I think I've heard it live as well. I think they do this and Petrol still from Trailer.
Do you know who did the music video for Girl from Mars?
No, you go for it.
Peter Christopherson from Throbbing Gristle. It's good fact, isn't it?
Was it a one-off or?
Yeah, just a one-off. Yeah.
Really? Because that's quite
random.
Quite a mainstream video.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's really weird.
But Babs, Jack Names the Planets.
Jack Names the Planets. So, I think this song, like one or two other songs, maybe from We Played This, Robin. This is what I was saying. Of I don't get into them immediately. So I agree that the chorus is hooky. But when it starts, I'm not convinced, and then it gets to the chorus, and I'm like, oh, okay, no, I think I get this. And then when it goes again, I really need repeated listenings. It's not automatic for me. And yeah, I was thinking, when I saw your list, I was like, oh, what would my kind of top 5 Ash songs be? And I think they would be very different, just because, I guess I'm younger and I discovered them later, and I associate different ones with them. So it's not my least favorite, but it's one that I really needed a few listens. So this one and another one from Trader, I don't think I'd ever heard before, or maybe I saw it live once and that was it. But I think the reason why I had only heard, let's say, Uncle Pat, is a similar file sharing story, Fran, because I think the first album by Ash that I tried to listen to was the Intergalactic Sonic 7 Inches. And I think Uncle Pat is the only one that came through on my parents' shitty dial-up connection. I just remember it was Kazaa, it wasn't Napster, I think, at the time. And I just remember seeing the cover was really cool, and it being a compilation, I was like, oh, it looks really cool, and it's this band that I don't know very well. But yeah, I think I hadn't knowingly listened to this song before listening to this podcast, since preparing for this podcast, basically.
Would you say that Ash needed Charlotte to, because obviously, I guess one thing people would say about Ash is his voice is quite weak, and I think that he didn't want to be the lead singer, and the lead singer quit because he got stage fright, so he ended up just having to be having to be the singer for the band. And in his early records, I guess his voice is a little bit weak, and maybe I do prefer when Charlotte joined, because she was singing backing vocals, and having the double, having two guitars did emphasize the sound a little bit more. So for me, it's a bit maybe too stripped back. I maybe prefer the late 90s, early noughties sound. Although, I mean, that doesn't make me sound cool at all to say that. But but yeah,
what, you didn't discover them when they were playing pubs illegally more than either of them? Oh, you're so uncool, Fran.
I love his voice though. Yeah, but it's a very characterful voice, I think.
I quite like his voice as well. I think it can every now and again sound a little bit whiny, but I don't think it's as much his voice as the vocal line. But to answer the question, did they need Charlotte? It's difficult to say, because I'm like, in a way, I do think she added something, that is missing in the non-Charlotte years. But they do have songs in the non-Charlotte years that I do enjoy. So I don't think, it was all or nothing, but she definitely added something. And she like them, she started playing guitar in a band age 15 too. I didn't realize. I thought she would have been in her early 20s when she joined Ash, but no, like I said, 19.
Over underrated.
So what's your next pick, Robin?
Yeah, going chronologically then, it's Petrol, which was the second single, and it's also on Trailer. One thing I really like about all this stuff is early 90s, mid-90s indie, there's obviously still huge Nirvana influence. So like as Jack Knows the Planet starts with like it's almost like Smells Like Teen Spirit style way of playing the guitar, and all the drum beats always go boom boom like that. There's always that beat, But I love it, and because it was a kind of language that was being used at the time, and I think Petrol's got that, but again, Petrol just stands out from a lot of other stuff at the time because it's this note of longing in it, and it's so beautiful. I think it's such a beautiful song. I really do think. I know that sounds maybe ridiculous to be talking about Ash, and it's obviously I sound like a YouTube commenter because it's just that I was young.
That's not a bad thing, Robin. Share your truth.
But the lyrics, I think, are really, really beautiful because they're so evocative. I mean, I've just done this whole podcast series with band The Clientele, and Alistair's lyrics from The Clientele are so evocative, the way he can conjure up a scene with just a few words. And there's something similar happening with Petrol, where what it's about, I think, is a guy a kid maybe, who's at a house and there's a party and there are cars arriving and he doesn't want to be there. But just with just a few words, he's summing up that whole scene and that feeling of being young and being very uncertain. And also, like, some of the lyrics are beautiful, like, I pace the darkened hall. That's great. It sounds like almost like spooky. There's something eerie about it. In the dull lamp's glow, the house is drenched in light, but what have I done wrong? I quietly climb the stairs. I remember all the years. It's really, I think it's genuinely brilliant lyrics. I really do. I love it. And, I just think there wasn't really much that sounded like this. It's a beautiful song. Chords are lovely. It's got a really good guitar solo. It's just everything about it's brilliant. I don't know.
Get onto YouTube and
Yeah,
start writing some comments. Most underrated track of all time.
I haven't even got to my favourite one yet. Oh my God.
I think this sounds like maybe like Dinosaur Jr. with that sort of sound.
Yeah, definitely.
You sing the guitar riff as the chorus instead of
yeah.
Maybe because he wasn't a confident singer at the time, he was maybe stepping back from the microphone and letting his guitar do the singing for him. I think this sounds more indie in converted commas than most of the tracks. I guess usually they got that pop punk feel to it. This feels like more underground indie than say their later tracks you get on 977. But yeah, I like two tracks off Trailer, and this is the second track I like. So Babs,
unfortunately, this is my least favorite. I think on your playlist. It's just I mean, Robin, you don't know me, but I am not a fan of music that sounds very melodic, and the guitar line is very melodic here, and it does dominate, as Fran says. But I will say again, very similarly to Jack Names the Planets, and that's the last time I will say this. It is one where I start listening, I'm like, it's a bit melodic, but I am way more convinced by the time the chorus comes around. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like the combination of the two put together, where there needs to be an ABA for me to kind of understand it. The A by itself doesn't resonate with me.
Yeah.
So it's not that I hate it, but it's just, again, in the context of, you're thinking about it in, I heard this in 1994 and it sounded like nothing else that was going on. I think that's very different to me discovering them at a later date and then coming back to listen to the earlier stuff and being like, oh, it doesn't quite sound like what I like. So I think there is some bias there from my side.
No, I get that.
Is Uncle Pat your favourite track of this?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I mean, again, I'm aware I'm probably going to sound slightly ridiculous, but I really can't express just how much this song means to me and how important it was to me, because in junior school I was kind of a big reader, and I loved like The Hobbit and Narnia and things like that, and Tom's Midnight Garden and the Deptford Mice trilogy, which I still love. And then when I got to sort of maybe 12, 13, maybe I don't know, maybe... Well, basically when I went to secondary school, I stopped reading and wasn't into it at all. It just made me realise how important words could be, really, and the stories you can tell, and how important nature writing is. And I mean, like, when I read the lyrics to this, I found it so beautiful and so moving that I just wanted more of it. And I literally would raid like my dad's bookshelves to try and find other examples of Irish poetry, basically, or nature poetry that would make me feel the way I felt when I read the lyrics to Uncle Pat, because I just thought it was so beautiful. And I still do. I think it's so beautiful, and also, what is this song doing on this album? Because it's like an album of like pop punk and kind of grungy stuff, and and then the melody sounds like an Irish folk melody, and the lyrics are about visiting a grave and then walking back home through the countryside. So what is this doing on this album? It doesn't make sense, and I loved how it didn't make sense. And I genuinely, I know I'm just repeating myself. I find it so beautiful. I really do. I really do. And from then on, I started reading a lot and got really into reading, and ended up doing English at university. And I honestly think that's because of this song. It was so important to me, and I love it so much, and I still do.
Do you think you stopped reading so much because, I guess, being a man, was it not seen as very cool to be a big reader, or did you start to kind of pick up on that, or was it just because you started developing other interests?
Yeah, other interests and things. Got really, really into music and stuff, and just didn't find, there's a phase where you're too old to read children's books, but you're too young to read grown-up books, and that kind of, I didn't really have stuff to read around then. But then after reading this, it's like literally I was trying to find poetry I really liked. I was trying to find novels I really liked. I was trying to find people who wrote about nature in that way that would make me feel that way again, I wrote the lyrics down, like, on the, did you used to get commendations? Did you ever have commendations at school?
Yeah.
I remember I had the lyrics written down on that in my pencil case so I could look at it, because I loved it so much.
Was it just yourself who thought this way, or were you with other friends who loved Uncle Pat and Ash, or was this your own journey?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of people, I guess I was a bit embarrassed about it, how touched I was by it, really. And, I don't, no, I mean, a lot of my friends, I went when we saw Ash at the Fleece. A lot of friends, loads of people from school went and absolutely loved it. And I don't think I really talked about anyone about this song in particular. That was the other thing as well, I remember as well, with going back to Mark Radcliffe. He used to have a section where they'd have someone in from a band reading something from their favourite book. And Tim Wheeler did All Quiet on the Western Front. And it was really moving. Again, just so profound and beautiful. The way he read it was so moving. And I remember at the Fleece saying, I met him and got him to sign something. And I said, I really loved the All Quiet on the Western Front thing. And he said, I didn't want to do that. I always remember that. And my brother asked him how come he had such a nice guitar, and he said he was loaded or something. But it didn't spoil the vibe. But sorry, I'm really banging on, but I just didn't understand where this song came from. I don't know. I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, I think people need to hear these. I don't think there's many people out there on podcasts banging on about the love of Uncle Pat. So, it's about time it had a platform.
And how Ash inspired them to go and read poetry.
Yeah.
Or, when you think about who are the kind of bands who might do that, you might think of like a prog rock band or something like that with some obscure reference that you don't understand. Whereas the lyrics are beautiful, but they are very accessible.
Yeah, it's very simple language. It's very simple language. I mean, maybe quite Smithsy then, maybe, but it doesn't have the kind of irony of the Smiths,
And because of its beauty is why it became the theme tune to a Heineken advert, obviously.
Yeah.
Of course.
Represents all of the lyrics in the song.
The most 90s advert I think I've ever seen in my life.
It's quite
with
an
all the camera angles.
advert,
It does not
gosh.
make any sense. It's like they just plucked out any random song and gave that a D.
Well, to be fair, they only have the instrumental bits in it, right? There's nothing about, a small wood or a cottage, but
they even put Ash the CD onto the record player.
Yeah.
This is really weird.
True.
Yeah. And that kind of flirtatious relationship that's I mean, wow. Can you post this on your social?
We have to in some way.
Yeah,
We will.
Quite amazing.
Yeah.
So for me, I never really after hearing you say how much you love it, I'm gonna say that for me, I've always struggled to love it. I think it's perfectly fine. I enjoy the I guess I've never really listened to the lyrics. It's only during this research actually delve deeper. I just I thought, okay, this sounds like a bit Pixie-ish and a bit High School Band, and I dismissed it. My bad. But
no. What about the folky thing? Did you pick up on that? Because it sounds like a folk melody.
I think like Bab said, because my first Ash was Life as Ordinary. It was like, what is this other side of him? It wasn't what I first fell in love with. So I struggled. But I guess, have they never gone back to this at all? They've never really gone back to this kind of music,
Not as far as I know. Not as far as I know.
Because a lot of bands do return to where they're saying, "Hi guys, we've gone back to our debut album sound," as a nostalgic thing. But yeah, I feel like I have done it an injustice, and I should go listening back to Uncle Pat.
Well, it's just it's a very personal response from me. I completely don't understand it'd be quite weird if everyone had the exact same response to it. Went off to do English at university.
Again, on YouTube, those people are mentioning the lyrics,
really,
and how it means something
nice.
to them. I mean, they've had 56,000, so it's had 5,000 more than Petrol. Compared to Stereophonics numbers, it's ridiculously small.
Yeah.
But Babs, what your thoughts on Uncle Pat?
I quite like this song, So this is the song from Intergalactic Sonic 7s that did make it through. Hooray Kazaa. And like Fran, I had never really paid attention to the lyrics. I have them here. They're absolutely gorgeous. I think, obviously I knew that the song ended with them saying, so here's for Uncle Pat, whatever it is. But honestly, really, I'd never made the connection that it might be a eulogy. And I think Tim Wheeler's voice on this sounds so sweet, which is what it should sound like for a song with this kind of a melody. And the guitar solo fits in really nicely. So for this one, compared to the other two from Trailer, this one I got immediately, even without listening to the lyrics. So then when you discover the lyrics, it definitely adds a whole new dimension to it.
In 1995, they opened he opened his A-level results live on Radio 1. So they would have been 17 when they did this, maybe even 16. So it's so mature.
I think there was a YouTube comment which was like, is this the best album done by 16-year-olds? And then someone mentioned an album by Silverchair.
Oh, right.
I think the Australian band. But I'm like, okay, I'd have to go and listen to that.
But what is interesting, I think Girls on Mars was written during this period as well.
Yeah,
and how different a track that could be compared to these, isn't it?
Over underrated.
What's your next track?
It's Goldfinger, which was the first single from this album. Although, no, they released Kung Fu as well, didn't they? Which is also on 1977.
I think it was the fourth. I think they did Kung Fu, Angel Interceptor, Girls on Mars, and then this was the first single after the album had been released.
Right. Yeah. It's. I mean, again, this is another beautiful song. When I listened to it through today, I'm sure there's auto-tune on it, but it was recorded pre-auto-tune. Do you know what I mean?
Really?
You can definitely hear. Maybe it's like a vocoder or something. There's definitely a very processed vocal thing.
1997 Cher did it, so why not in 1996? Eh?
But no, I love this song, and I think again it's got these beautiful lyrics, and I think he writes. That's the amazing thing is to be young, but to be able to write about being young with such a kind of almost wistful, nostalgic air, is because this is about having parties and getting bottles of wine in and it raining a lot. And, was it your brother started school? So, being very young but the way he manages to make it sound so sad as well. Because it's an interesting song. It's complicated. It's really beautiful, great melody. You can write a tune.
Yeah, I think he said it is about him growing up and he had finished school and his brother was starting school and he's looking back at his past life in Downpatrick. But no, I do like the lyric. I put some records on, and some bottles of wine. I mean, that's like I said, this is the first track I heard. I think it was a top 5 single, and then it doesn't really sound a lot like Ashland. I think that Owen Morris was asking them they need another single, and he went through all the tracks, and then like this was one of the last ones he played to them, and he thought of this as like a throwaway B-side because it didn't really fit in Ash's back catalogue. And then Owen goes, no, that's the single. That's going on the album. So it's like, okay, and history has shown that it's one of the biggest hits. People on YouTube absolutely adore it. Again, they're saying, "Oh, this reminds you of when music was good." Yada yada yada.
Well, the quote that I've got is from Shitsumel Gumovich is, "This song is what falling in love in the 90s felt like, brackets, at least how I remember it." So this is an interesting one. I had not listened to this song in years because my memory was, it got downloaded in Kazaa back in the mid 2000s and I didn't like it. But I really did like it this time around because, it has this grungier sound. But what makes it for me is the really unexpected key changes, chord changes, I don't even know. And especially, right at the beginning, the quiet bits where it's just his voice and a guitar, and then suddenly the comes back in on the drums, changes it. So it's constantly, another word I like to say, it's constantly wrong-footing you. It's constantly taking you in different directions. It packs so much into the short time. And I really like the bridge with the guitar solo and I've called them the space guitars, which make it sound really like it is raining. And I mean, I don't know if he still feels the same about this, but I did read a quote that Tim Wheeler said that Goldfinger has the best words I've ever written. And the analysis is it's about a guy sat at home on a dark night. His girlfriend has gone out. He's a clingy person and worrisome, and the absence of the person with the pathetic fallacy of the lashing rain causes him to worry. Is what Genius.com says, and I'm like, sounds about right. But it's quite funny because you say he really makes it sound depressing. For me it's more wistful than depressing. There is a kind of romance to it where he doesn't seem like a complete sad sack, right? Like there is still some interest there and some romance. I mean, and he looks like such a little puppy dog in the video as well, with his longer hair and everything. And he's 17. I'm not going to say anything else. He's too young for me to make it. But he's a very cute man and a very cute boy and a very attractive man in his older age as well. And I think that also helps sell that.
Robin, after hearing Trailer, when you first heard things like Girls on Mars, were you put off? Were you surprised? What were your thoughts of their new, like, more mainstream post-punk sound?
I loved Girl from Mars. Yeah, I don't know really. I mean, I guess I followed them and did really, really. Obviously, bought the records and loved them, but I always just had such fondness for those early singles. Really, But I listened to 1977 today, and I think there are some songs on it that are just like, it's not. I think you can tell that they weren't quite sure what they were doing. I mean, it's very bombastic, and it doesn't always hit home. And when it does, it's very, very good, like on Goldfinger. Do you remember? Did you get 1977? It had this kind of. Do you remember the bonus track, which was them all being sick?
The vomit.
It was so disgusting.
Yeah. And when I was even more surprised, I found that was actually real sick as well. It actually was Rick puking up. Yeah. And also, but I was so surprised, like it's magic, that you could rewind from track 1 and there'd be a track before track 1. Yeah. Like, what is this, like, voodoo sort of like? Yeah,
Super Furry Animals did that with Gorilla, and it's the best song on the album. But it was like almost impossible to rewind it to the right spot.
And Spotify has destroyed the hidden track, hasn't it? Really?
Yeah.
But I love Lose Control and the singles, but not much else, I think, on that album.
Kung Fu's on that album, right?
Yeah, Kung Fu's great.
Yeah, when they played that live in 2018, that really made me enjoy it much more than just listening to it on the record.
Am I right in saying that Mark used 3 strings and a bass for like the first 20 years?
Well, that rings a bell. Yeah.
That sounds
and it's
like
only recently he's actually added that other string. So if you're going to learn bass, surely he's a good one to copy.
Honestly, Numbskull, for getting your aggression out, I do recommend it. But going back to old music for one final track, what's your 5th song, Robin?
A Life Less Ordinary, which was the song that was written for the Danny Boyle film, which was am I right in saying that's the film he made after Trainspotting?
Yeah. Yep, so had all the hype.
Yeah. And I just feel like he totally hit the brief. Like, he's such a good songwriter. I think the chorus of this is amazing, and it could be a Carole King song or something. It seems to have an incredible early 60s quality. It's really beautiful, and there's just that, again, it's that note of longing in it. He can write a really, really good love song, and yeah, I think the chorus is beautiful, and I really respect him for having this huge, request. Like, basically, can you write something as good as "Lust for Life" by Iggy Pop? But which obviously it isn't. But like, I mean, it's a different thing. I don't mean it isn't as good. You see what I mean? But like, I don't know. I've always loved this song. I think it's really good.
I bought us a CD single, and it's way better than the film.
I can't remember the film now.
I was going to ask if you guys
Cameron
have seen the
Diaz
film.
in it. That's all I can remember about it. Yeah.
This is the only thing I can remember from the whole film.
The soundtrack does look good though. It's got Beck and R.E.M.
Danny
and
Boyle
Cardigans.
is a good guy for soundtracks, but
Yeah.
I listened to this for the first time in a while, and when the chorus hit, I got shivers. And I thought, yeah, this is such a perfect pop song.
It is.
And
It's great.
and I forgot about how good the music video is.
Yeah.
But yeah, lyrically, yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, I'll sell my soul. I love, yeah, every time I see them live, this is always a highlight. And when the music, the instrumental section in the middle, when all the guitars jump in, beautiful. So yeah, so I'm very happy that you chose this track, and I think this is why everyone felt so confused by Nuclear Sounds, because this came just before it.
Yeah.
And and you're waiting for this maybe the Free Your Angels album, and then this is not what we expected.
Because Nuclear Sounds was the first single Jesus Says, and it's almost like he's trying to do like a Lou Reed or something. I don't know. It wasn't. I don't know. I remember on Top of the Pops. I think he was he wearing a straitjacket? Have I misremembered that on Top of the Pops? I can't remember. Yeah.
But I think it almost bankrupted the band, that album.
Really?
It flopped so hard, yeah.
Oh wow.
And then he had to do he recorded Shark, I think, for a computer game just to keep him going, to be able to record Free Your Angels. So when Free Your Angels hit, and it hit big, as like, yay, Ash have done well again. So Babs, Life Less Ordinary. I
do like this song. I think the sense that the rockier direction that they take later on, which I prefer. I really like how wistful it sounds. The fact that he can call someone a white goddess and it doesn't, he never sounds gauche.
Right.
It's quite incredible that such a young guy can write these lyrics and they just sound, beautiful and meaningful. They were Uncle Pat when they were 15, 16, and to write something like this at 18, 19, it is unreal. But I will say, I do enjoy several of the songs on the playlist, but it is funny because I still, despite this kind of reassessment, it isn't the ones I would pick, but that I think is what makes Ash quite an interesting band, because I think even between you and Fran, you probably also wouldn't pick the same songs, Fran. I think the three of us would come with three completely different lists, which I think is what makes them an underrated band in a way, because I think people do associate Shining Light and Burn Baby Burn, maybe Girl from Mars, and that's it, when there's much more than that. I would say that the A to Z collection has some of the best ever songs, and by them choosing to not release it on an album at first and release them all as a single, it kind of hurt their career a bit massively. They've got a track called, I think it's called Sky Burial, which is a 11-minute instrumental, which sounds horrendous, but I absolutely adore it, and it sounds nothing like anything Ash has ever done. Cool. I think because they were doing singles every month, they could be more experimental. So it's the first time that they had like 80s synth sounds. I think they were completely trying out as many creative ideas as possible. So if you do have time, please check out the A to Z collection.
I will. I'm gonna listen to that tomorrow, and I'm gonna listen to the new album as well, because I feel like for such an important formative band, like I haven't ever really got past Trailer, which is really bad. I get that. Yeah. I
totally get that. Even with the Subways who they're touring with, I think, like I said, I love their first album so much, and I remember being so disappointed when that second album came out, and then I listened to it 5 years later and I was like, oh no, it is actually good. It's just that it wasn't the first album, and that was the expectation that I had, so now I have to come into it with like a totally different mindset. And I would even say maybe after you've done all that, maybe try Nuclear Sounds again. I don't know what if you like it, but I think Death Trip 21 and Numbskull,
that's the one that's going in the kind of rap rock direction, isn't it?
1 million miles away.
I can't remember that at all. Yeah. It's been a while.
Playing with the dark stuff, guys. Go and listen to Tim Wheeler play with the dark stuff. Fran, your conclusion. Are Ash underrated?
I believe is it 47,000? What's it? It's 470,000.
417,000 monthly listeners. I was shocked. I thought it would be in the millions.
So yeah, a sixth of what the Stereophonics are getting. And looking at the videos, like they haven't even gone past 1 million apart from like extraordinary views. So yeah, and as I said, every time I see them at a festival, they're slowly sliding down the list of. So yeah, for me, definitely underrated. I do like a bit of Ash.
I find this one quite hard, I have to say, because my idea of Ash is that they in the let's say the Britpop ethos, but let's say more widely in the 90s noughties British rock canon, they are one of the biggest bands on there, right? So I was coming in being like, well, no, but they're not underrated. I see the point that Robin's trying to make, that the earlier stuff is worth exploring. But when I saw, not only how many monthly listeners they've had, but how many plays their new album has had on Spotify, it's not that many for a band. It did maybe be like, oh, maybe they are underrated. But I think I'm going to say they're rated just because, I'm sitting on the fence. The songs of theirs I really like Numbskull. Listen, guys, I know I'm on a different level, but Numbskull, I got really obsessed with it. I bought the single, I think, in lockdown. That's how recent it is. And they're definitely a band that I do get very obsessive about, and will listen to certain songs over and over again. We didn't even touch upon Candy, which I really like, which samples the Walker Brothers. Didn't even know that until today. So I am a really big fan of some of their stuff, but I don't think I can call them truly underrated because I don't like enough of their records that I've listened to in their entirety. But it's one of those where I'm like, come back to me in 5 years' time when I've listened to more, and maybe I will say that they're underrated when I've listened to it a bit more. I haven't listened to the singles compilation, for example. And despite, saying that I enjoyed the songs from the album Islands, I remember kind of going on setlist.fm being like, right, what were the 3 songs I heard from that album? Okay, let's save them. And then I've listened to it once or twice since, so I maybe a bit like you, Robin, I haven't given enough of a chance post a certain period, probably post Meltdown. And I probably need to do that to come up with a better opinion.
So, 2 underrated and 1 rated.
There we go.
Well, thank you for joining us, Robin. So as where can our audience find you, and do you have anything like to promote to them? Or
I've just finished a series, like I mentioned, working with the Clientele, who are a brilliant band, such an interesting band, and I did make a 10-episode podcast about them. I was talking to the band and talking to fans of the band and things. I'm really proud of it because they're a band that means an awful lot to me, and I think they're so interesting. Lyrically, musically, there's so many jumping off points when I was talking to them. It was great. So I'm really proud of that little series. So if you fancy having a listen to that, it's called the Clientele Podcast, and it's available on all platforms, I think.
Babs, any final thoughts on Britpop modern music?
I mean, kind of in a more earnest fashion. I was thinking about this throughout the recording of like paying to go and see let's say a more legacy band like Ash versus paying to see newer acts. I think that's always something I have in my mind, having also, going back to the beginning, having just seen the Sugar Babes, right, who started in the late 90s, early 2000s. Because I think you and I, Fran, have talked about, it is quite frustrating when you see the people who only support, who only will go and see bands from ye olde days and don't support new music. But I think when a band that has been going so long, still with the original lineup, still putting on good shows, whether they're playing, a kind of greatest hit set or newer stuff as well, it is worth supporting them. I think I'm trying to convince myself to go and splurge for those tickets to go and see Ash on the subways, basically. So what I'm trying to say is support live music, as we often say. What about you?
Check out Ash, check out their new album. Your favorite band, you don't have to love all of it, but as long as you love enough, and the band will be thankful. And you don't have to, you're not a bad fan for not liking the new album. It's fine. I think some people out there pretend to love every single band because they have loved that album, they've loved that band since they're 13, and it's fine to not love everything that your artist will release. But no, they will, as long as they're still going, they will bring out something amazing again. So keep supporting your favorite artists. And other cliches.
Very wise words to me, Sean.
Nicely put.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thanks again, Robin. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Oh, that was great.
And there we go. That was your 90s special part 3, maybe. And yeah, that was a lot of fun. We talked for maybe 2.5 hours. And yeah, this was the highlighted package. Thanks again to Robin for being our guest and so supportive. And always, if you enjoyed the podcast, please like and subscribe. And also you can follow us on social media. We are on Twitter at OU Music Pod. We are on Blue Sky at OU Music Pod as well. Also on Instagram at Underrated Music Pod. And also you can give us a mail on your Gmail, which is overunderatedmusicpod@gmail.com. See you next time, guys. Thanks again.